Hey, Jess, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Hey, Jess, I'm not hearing you. Hello? Hello?
Oh no.
There you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I had come in on the right thing, I guess.
No, you did. It was just a little bit of a delay.
Okay.
Yeah, make
Okay.
sure your Bluetooth is turned off. If you have Bluetooth on your phone, probably turn it
Oh,
off.
okay. That's probably what it is. That might be. I can turn that off.
Yeah, it'll make it work better if you turn it off.
Okay. Sorry about that. I am not savvy with all of this stuff.
Well, yeah, last time we talked, we were on Spearman.
Yes.
And Behrman was really cool, and we did a lot of calls with a lot of people, including you.
Mm-hmm.
But they moved on to doing like video support for podcast.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and they actually even told me about this particular app. And this app is kind of cool. And this is a true podcasting app. It actually creates the podcast and then pushes it out to Spotify and Radio Public and Apple. So it gets a wider audience. And
Oh, okay.
And in addition, for like music artists, it allows you to attach their Apple Music or Spotify tracks as segments.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if
Wow.
you have a WAV file that you'd want to include of any kind of thing, it's only audio.
Mm-hmm.
It can be added to the segment. And so what I was thinking of doing is taking our old Spearman interview and attaching it as like an archive segment to this, so people can hear the interview we did last.
Oh, that's really smart. That's really smart.
Yeah, so I'm going to do that. Immediately, this one will be available on Anchor,
Okay, great.
and then it'll be published. It might actually come out on Apple tonight. I'll let you know when it's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to talk with you again. We had talked to you, like I said, on our old program, Family Electric Ghost on Spearman, but now we're Family Electric Ghost on Anchor.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and I wanted you to maybe go over some of the things that you've been doing since the last time we talked.
Well, I think everything is pretty much the same. I have new projects now that I'm doing and kind of finishing and starting. So in terms of film, I have a film that's we're slated to begin shooting in August, and it's a feature film called Play.
Awesome.
And we're doing that here in New York. And that one's about it's more of a psychological thriller.
Oh.
Yeah, and so we're trying to wrap up solidifying our location right now for shooting. But it looks like August is when we'll be doing that. And then alternatively, I just got a teaser of a film that we haven't shot this film yet, but the concept, the script is there. We have a director, and we shot a teaser for this film, and the director sent me the finished teaser yesterday, so I'll be posting that hopefully either tomorrow or over the weekend. But that film is it's about a woman who suffered a trauma with her partner, her girlfriend, and the film kind of chronicles how she deals with this trauma. And her occupation is that she's a singer. And she travels and she sings at different venues, and she happens to be in Europe, and she's also very influenced and inspired by Marvin Gaye. So there's a lot of his music, or a lot of what he was about, kind of intertwined with her story, and how she goes about facing this challenge. and she meets someone on the way that kind of helps her as well. So that is supposed to start shooting sometime in the fall. Actually, in London and Belgium, they would like to shoot in certain locations.
That's awesome. You get to travel.
Yeah, so so those are two films that I've got, and then I was recently cast in a Marvel production.
Well, which one?
I can't say right
Can
now.
you say whether it's TV or movie?
I can say that it's TV.
Oh, cool. There's a lot. Can you say if it's on a cable channel or not?
It's on Netflix.
Oh, I watch a lot of those shows, so I'm probably gonna see you big time. Can I watch all of them?
Yeah. So that one is we just finished shooting. We shot that last week. I have just a small part.
Is it gonna be recurring, or is this a one-time?
It's a one-time thing for now. I think it had the potential to be recurring, but as far as I know, it's just that one little part that I did. It's a small, like I said, it's a small role, but
Cool.
I'm interacting and I speak with one of the main characters of this show.
Cool.
And I believe it's supposed to that's supposed to come out sometime in the fall as well.
Well, I can kind of guess because I watch all those shows and I know what the next ones they're due out.
Oh yeah.
I won't say what it is because I have an idea. But
okay, yeah.
But going back to the one where you're channeling Marvin Gaye, so you're going to be singing, or you're going to have like overdubs of somebody else singing? Are you going to sing that as the singer? Are you actually going to sing songs in this movie?
Yeah, I'm actually the teaser has me singing. So I will be singing the music and whatever else that this character is going to be singing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So is somebody writing the songs for you? Or are they already written songs, or did you write them?
I think that these songs are going to be already written, as far as I know. And I think that's another kind of challenge of this film, is because it's heavily influenced and inspired by Marvin Gaye's music and his lyrics, is kind of getting that license or permission to use the music in the film. And so I think that's part of the challenge of making this film, is because he's so prominent. He's so prominent in terms of.
So do you have examples of you singing? Like, do you have any like released like music?
Well, I'm not professionally a singer.
Mm-hmm.
I can sing, and I have sang or sung for productions.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't have anything out in terms of like I don't have my own SoundCloud or.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I was like, wow, because I hadn't really heard that you had. I think you had shown me some stuff last year, but I didn't really focus on your singing at all. So it's interesting to hear that you're branching out. But I know a lot of actors for plays and stuff have to sing, so they have to have that talent.
Yeah, I mean, I occasionally I'll upload a video of me singing, and it's kind of just because I like to sing, but I've never really pursued singing as a career. So there's nothing professional in terms of like I have an album out or anything, but you can find things of me singing places.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I was wondering. I never saw a SoundCloud, never saw a Spotify.
Yeah. It's just it's an ability that I have, but I don't I don't use it in that way.
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm always collaborating with all kinds of people and doing all kinds of things. So
yeah.
If you ever want to get into it more serious and you want somebody that could produce like the way I do stuff. I mean, I kind of an odd bird myself. I kind of do weird stuff, but if you ever got interested in that, that would be cool. I didn't realize you were doing that as much, but
no.
So interesting about Clay. Can you talk more about like what the plot line and everything has been in Play?
Well, Play is, without giving too much away about the story. It's about a man who is he's going through his own trauma with his wife. And the film kind of explores how he deals with the trauma between him and his wife. And his occupation is he's a he's a psychologist or a therapist, and he has his own set of psychological issues that he doesn't really handle. And the film kind of explores his own psychosis and how he is very neglectful in terms of um, uh, his own, emotional issues. And so my character is someone who kind of forces him to look at how he's living his life, having experienced this trauma with his wife and in his life, and really explore his emotional issues. Um, but in a very dark way. He has some skeletons in his closet, and my character kind of exposes that as well. So it's a very there's a lot of mystery to this film.
Yeah, sounds like you've got some really interesting projects there. They've got a lot of depth.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
like the fact that like to take on like challenging, kind of dark, or kind of you know not it's really cool the stuff you do. I like that kind of edgy.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to be that person. I'm very much kind of intrigued by darkness and the way people are affected by it and how they process it in their own lives. I think, dark things, edgy things are very interesting. And it's always interesting for me to play characters that have that dark edge, because I believe that there's more than just one way to play darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to give it a third dimension that people tend to not give it. So
Yeah, like within the genre of music I do, like electronic music, I try to do like a darkness, and my whole thing is I'm Phantom Electric Ghost, and my latest project is called Dark Ghost.
mm-hmm.
It kind of takes the idea that love can be like a dark ghost. That you can be attracted to the negative in a person, and
Mm-hmm.
you might think it's positive, but you're actually kind of pulled in by this kind of phantasm that's like dark. The darkness about somebody attracts you, and then it pulls you in, and you're thinking because it's love that it's supposed to be positive, but it becomes like negative.
Yeah, no, that's tricky about love.
Yeah,
Um, it can be very deceiving
yeah,
because it's um, I've listened to a lot of love podcasts or TED Talks and stuff. And it's interesting how the brain processes love. It's the same way as if you were an addict.
yeah,
Um, the same. I think it's dopamine or something is
yeah. It's
released.
dopamine.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see how you function as a person in love, similar to someone who's addicted, and
Yeah,
how that can really change you, and make you do things that are completely out of character. And one of those things is being attracted to something that might be really dark in a person, but because you're in love with them, it doesn't translate that way.
yeah. You start thinking that, well, okay, what's going to be positive, but it's dark, and it kind of goes
Mm-hmm.
the opposite of what you expected. You expected it to be fulfilling, and then it's like empty.
Right.
I was like kind of addressing a microcosm and a macrocosm level. I just like to play with duality.
Yeah, no, I think that's great to do in any art form, because it just gives things that third dimension. It helps people see things in more than just one way. And I think that's how you need to do all of your art,
Yeah, well, I
is
like
to
that
give
about
it.
your artwork, your whole image, and I was going to talk about also like your clothing line, that like Tunk Jes Davis.
Yeah.
Did you want to
Um,
talk about that? Because I know last time we talked, you were launching it, and you were going to have this big thing right after we had our conversation, and I saw that through the social media and through Instagram, and I saw a lot of the stuff that was going on. So maybe you want to talk to folks about what you've done with that.
Yeah. So yeah, I have my own line of punk clothing, and it's called Tunk, TUNC, by Jes Dav. And yeah, when we spoke last time, I think I was preparing for Fashion Week. I had a Fashion Week fashion show coming up, and since then it's gone very well. I actually met a musical artist. His name is Johnny O. He's a Latin artist, more of like pop. Uh, and he was at this fashion show and saw my jackets and was very interested in featuring one of them in his music videos, which he did. And then later he approached me to design one for him. And he wore it to the Latin Billboard Awards.
Awesome.
Yeah, so he actually got a chance to walk the red carpet in one of my jackets. So yeah, that was kind of a milestone for
the
brand.
Mm-hmm. Did that actually convert into like actual like sales?
Yeah, it's very different, I think, in terms of fashion, because I know a lot of people, and you know, if you're a musician and you work with someone or you're at an award show, you automatically there's more of a gravitational pull for you to create more work. And it does work similarly for fashion. It's just slower, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I have been designing more for people individually. I have a couple clients that I design for, and people whom have seen my work that now I'm starting to design for. So it's still a process. I still have to do a lot of work in terms of marketing myself and getting myself out there as a designer, because I have to kind of balance that with being an actor.
Yeah.
As well. So
you're kind of forced. You do you're multi-talented.
Thanks. Yeah, it's nice to have multiple abilities that people appreciate.
Yeah.
I think the most difficult thing is being able to balance everything and give everything the appropriate amount of time so that they can so that they all thrive. But I think at the end of the day, both my fashion and my acting worlds, when they do collide, they do help each other out. So aside from the Latin Billboard Award feat, I also had one of my pieces featured on an upcoming Netflix show called Russian Doll.
Oh, I saw. Yeah, I've heard about that. That looks cool.
Yeah, and you know, again, it's very small, very small little feature, but it's it's very big in a way because it's Netflix, and a lot of people watch it, and especially this particular show has Natasha Lyonne as the lead, who was one of the more prominent characters on Orange is the New Black. So there's already a built-in fan base. So it's nice to have my work seen on that scale, even if it's only for a second and it's very small. But it does make a difference. People do see it, and there's exposure there. So I take all of the small little feats and really try to work them in a way that will get me to another level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's just it as an artist. It's like a holistic thing, you know, because you can sing, you're an actor, you're a model, you're a designer, you know. So if you take the holistic picture, like you're starting to bring all the phases of what you can do, into your work, you know.
Yeah, no, it's for a long time, I thought that if I were to embrace more than one of my abilities as an artist, it meant that I was betraying the other ability. And so for many years, I didn't. I really worked on just being an actor and not doing fashion, because I thought if I was doing both, that meant one would suffer. And I've come to find that that's not the case, actually. They all inform each other. All of the artistic abilities that you might have as an artist, they all help each other out. I think it all comes back to prioritizing and managing your time and understanding how much energy you can give to one thing, and you just go from there. You kind of just feel it out, because you're always going to have that artistic drive, no matter which art you're in. So it's better to use that than stifle it. I've found.
Yeah, I think like if you think of the multimedia world we're in, where like musicians end up doing acting, actors do music, people bring their own art,
Yeah.
into everything. And so if you think of it a holistic way, if you have a vision, it could be part of it could be like actual art or fashion or acting or being a musician, or if you take all those pieces and you start to put them together, then you start to see like you could do something new, because you take everything that you're capable of and not just think you have to be like an expert. Like some people like unless I can play like Hendrix, I'm not going to play the guitar.
Right. Yeah.
I think that can sometimes take somebody that probably should be out there and keep people from hearing them because they're being too self-critical.
Right. There's a lot of self-criticism as an artist, I believe, and there's a lot of rigidity that you go through because you think there's a pure form of one thing, and in a lot of ways there are. I was listening to an Anthony Bourdain interview the other day, and I'm just really devastated by by the loss of him, because he was such an inspiring person. But he was saying he had a very rigid view of certain things in terms of food and cuisine and cooking, but he allowed for people to be innovative when it came to certain traditional dishes, and he would quiet his rigidity and let someone create something outside of the traditional idea that was already there. So I think sometimes it's good to see the purest form of what it is that you admire in art, but also allow for change and allow for growth, allow for things to get to a new place. And I think that's just in life in general. You have to just allow for things to grow and continue forward in a new way. So,
I think that happens. Like if you think about education or at any level, you think about Einstein. Einstein was brilliant, but some people judged him and like didn't think, when he was first starting, he didn't get the highest marks. And he was brilliant because he was like ahead of his time. Sometimes if you do something outside the canon, whether it's music or academics, sometimes your critics are like, "Well, you're not doing it right." But if you're an innovator, you might be doing something that nobody ever did.
Right.
And how that gets judged, it might get judged harshly.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to kind of fail or do something different and be willing to be criticized.
Yes.
To actually move forward.
Yeah, no, you have to put yourself out there and take a risk. All of life is risk taking. So whatever you do, you just have to be prepared in order to move to that next level, to take that risk. And then whatever that risk brings to you, work from there. I think a lot of times the reason people feel so, I guess, stagnant in their craft is the risk taking can be overwhelming. You don't know the payoff. You have no idea what's going to happen if you take a risk. And that's just in life in general, not just art, but in general, you have no idea how the outcome of a risk is going to be. But I find whenever I do take a risk in life or in my art, I learn something, and that is always positive. You're always learning, and to learn something from a failure or to learn something from a risk that either did or didn't pay off is always going to be a positive, and it's always going to be a good thing. So my default is to just take the risk.
Yeah.
Because you learn.
Yeah, that's one thing I had a question is, like, within like the music industry, there's a lot of pressure where, you know, the industry as it exists today always wants to replicate something that already is a hit.
Right.
And so though you will see, I get pitches all the time, they sound like Drake, sound like this song, sound like this. They actually will say they want a clone of somebody else, but they don't want it from that person. They want you to clone them so they don't have to pay that person.
Right. No, I mean that exists in all art.
Yeah.
That exists in all art. That's where knockoff, you know, Louis Vuitton bags came from.
Yeah.
You know, the whole corporation of Payless is based off of, let's make shoes that look like this but inexpensive.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of that's always existed, and it's hard for the artist because it's if you are you're packaging something that's not yours.
Yeah.
You know, and you're made to sell this idea that you might not really wholeheartedly be behind.
Yeah.
And that can really stifle your creativity as well, because you're not in a space where you can be creative like you want. But that's a challenge. That's the challenge of being an artist. And it's being able to find those moments where someone is asking you to be like someone else, but still insert you in there so that it doesn't sound just like a carbon copy of something else, but it actually has you in there as well.
So being an actor, are you getting that? You're saying like that happens everywhere. Have you seen that where people are telling you to like be a carbon copy of somebody else to the role, or is it more like you pick roles that you find interesting, you don't go and do that?
Sorry. When it comes to acting, there's a similarity in there. I think the one thing that I can speak on as an actor where that happens is you're being pigeonholed to a certain role or typecast.
Typecast, yeah.
That's where that happens. And so you get stuck in playing the same roles all the time, or being asked to come in and audition for the same parts. And you have to give it something different. The part that I had auditioned for Marvel was a role that you could easily see a female getting typecast for.
Oh, okay.
And I think the reason that I did get this role was because I didn't do it in.
Oh, you did it in a non-traditional way?
I did it in a very non-traditional way. The funny thing was, I really didn't want the part. I didn't want the part because it was, you know, there's this whole idea that once you do Marvel in any capacity, you can't do it. They won't let you come back as another character. Oh. So, like, if somewhere down the line, you know, they want to cast Storm again, I'm over here and I already played a part, and I can't go out for Storm. So there's that dilemma. But I wanted to do it anyway, just because I want to take the opportunity. But having said that, I just went in doing the role in a completely different way and avoiding the stereotype, avoiding doing the obvious choice. Mm-hmm. And that paid off. That was a risk that I took, and I was completely fine with taking that risk and being comfortable in and making that choice. I gave them what they wanted, but I also gave them something that I thought they needed.
And that's the art in being an actor. I think that's the art. That's the way where you can differentiate yourself, and you get people to recognize, Jes Davis brings this to the role because you have that ability to do that.
Thank you.
That's why I think it seems like you're starting to really, make a mark, and I really enjoy seeing what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really working on getting the work out there, getting the people whom I work with, their work seen, because I do now this point in my career, I have made more decisions about who I work with. And I am more selective. And a lot of the people that I work with are just very, very dedicated artists. And they pursue their craft with just as much intensity and intellect and ingenuity as I do. And I want to make sure that these people that I work with, they are getting the just, credit for their work. So it's been a very long process to get there, because I have been acting for 10 years, and I can't see myself doing anything else. I will be doing this forever. There's never been a moment in my mind where I should just stop doing this, because it's not something I can just give up. It's like very ingrained.
Yeah, I think
me.
artists, like, it's like who they are. Like, if you're a musician, sometimes you just wake up and it doesn't matter if you get a top 10 hit or whatever. You create music because you want to create it. Like,
Right.
the great jazz artists, they create the work just because, like a poet, like William.
Yeah.
He created the songs of Sense and Experience, whether or not anybody was ever going to read it. He just felt the passion to do it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of that in art in general. So one of my friends sent me something by, I want to say it was Dizzy Gillespie. And the quote goes, "Some days you get up and you put the horn to your chops and it sounds pretty good and you win. Some days you try and nothing works and the horn wins. This goes on and then you die and the horn wins." So it's like your craft will always win and supersede, even when you might not want it to, because it's such a part of your life. That his trumpet was a part of him. The brush was a part of Monet, Manet, Picasso, all of these different artists. Acting is very much just my instrument that I carry with me. And I can't I can't really separate myself from it, because it informs my life in so many different ways. But there are times when you do, as an artist, want to see life in a different way. And sometimes it's hard to separate yourself from your craft so that you can look at life in a different way. So I think that's another challenge that artists go through.
Yeah, I think sometimes, like, you think about, like, if you create a persona as an artist, whether you're a musician or an actor, and people see you as that character.
Yeah.
And then because you see you as multiple characters, and then people don't really know who you are.
Exactly.
They see all the portrayals that you're doing, but they don't really know you, and they make assumptions that is you.
Right. There's this two-dimensional character that I think a lot of artists fall into, especially with the advent of social media being how you push yourself forward as an artist. Mm-hmm. You create the content. You decide when it comes out. You decide how it's put out there. So and a lot of this content is photos, videos, and it's not all about really knowing the artist as a full person. It's really about seeing the artist in their art.
Yeah.
And so that can make it very two-dimensional, because you're not giving anything to the other parts of yourself as a human. But that's another challenge of being an artist, is how much do you let your fan base in, because that's a very personal place, and that can be very hard.
Yeah, you see it with a lot of artists. You see, like, somebody like Prince. Nobody really knew who he really was.
Right.
So he never let anybody really see that. He just had the Prince image, and then there's Prince Rogers Nelson. He's like, well, who is he? You don't really get to hear him. He doesn't really talk. You never really. You got to see all the images, all the songs.
Yeah, you see the personas.
Yeah,
and you see the music. Yeah. And if that's how you want people to see you, then that's great, because you get to dictate who gets to see the full you. And I think there is something to be said about that as an artist, to be able to do that, because you have to save yourself for you, and for people who really know you and care about you. So I respect artists who do that. I was in a place not too long ago where I was feeling very much caught up in this two-dimensional character I think that people perceive of me on social media. I have this special niche of being the sexy badass.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I kind of painted myself into a corner by being so much this character in my daily life and then also on social media. And so the way that people would interact with me and talk to me was based on this persona that I had really fallen into. Mm-hmm. And the way that I for my own sanity and my peace of mind, I needed to get out of that. You know, the badass and the sexy are very much a part of me. Yes. Those are real personality traits, but they're not the only ones. And when people tend to just interact with you based on some form of your artistry, and that's the only way that they communicate to you or interact with you, it can be very dull. It can be very assuming about your intelligence as a human and about your worldliness as a human. So for me to combat that, I did a series of cystic fibrosis awareness videos.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. Can I ask you about the salty CF on your page?
Yeah. So cystic fibrosis is a chronic lung disease that affects the main organ in the body, which is the lungs. And the body has a defect in the chloride cells that creates this thick, sticky mucus that stick to the walls of your lungs and other organs in your body. And as a CF patient, we go through treatments and antibiotics and different oral meds to get this mucus out of us and to monitor the infections this mucus causes, help us gain weight because it's a very digestive disease. So I wanted to share that part of myself with people, to give the sexy badass a third dimension that I believe was missing. And the Salty CF was a project that I was a part of a couple years ago, called Salty Girls. And the reason it's called Salty Girls is because there's a defect in our chloride. Chloride is pretty much what's the salt content in your body. Mm-hmm. We have very salty surface skin, just regularly. And so the project was titled Salty Girls. Both men and women have this quality. But this project was focusing on the women. And it was just highlighting how you can have such a physical, internal disease, but still maintain your womanhood and being sexy and beautiful and powerful through having something chronic and potentially fatal. So that was that project. And I decided to do my own little project to raise awareness, because cystic fibrosis, albeit very serious, is very rare. So not a lot of people know that it exists. Yeah. And not a lot of people are affected. There are more people affected by cancer, I believe, than CF. So it's harder to get funding and get people to be aware of something that isn't affecting the population at a high rate, like cancer or another bronchial disease, or condition like asthma. So the more that we talk about it, the more likely it is for us to get more people to be involved in terms of donating and getting better medication and treatments out there for those who are really really challenged with this disease, because it can be very, very challenging.
Yeah, I see on your page at JesDavis.com, you have a whole section on Salty CF. You've got a donate to CF button, and you've got the Salty Girls button.
Yeah.
They're good sites, so I just want to let the listeners know they should go there, hit the donate button, and check out the Salty Girls site as well.
Yeah, please do. I mean, the Salty Growth Project has, it's not active anymore, but if you want to learn about it, you definitely can. You can still visit it. The photographer Ian Ross Pettigrew, who created this project, he's still active in terms of raising awareness for CF.
Okay.
So if you go to the Salty CF link, you might find him, and
I think you have a link for him too.
Yeah, you can find his work and what he's doing, and but if you go to cf.org, I believe, or the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, cff.org, that's where you can donate. You can find out where you can. They have walks for CF to raise awareness. I believe there are bike rides to raise awareness. You can also donate to different organizations that help kids with CF in terms of scholarships and just overall health, gym memberships and stuff like that, which I've taken advantage of as a CF or as a kid. So it's really helpful to be in a position to talk about it and get people to donate and do something, because it does affect a lot of people, even if it's on a smaller scale. People are still affected.
Yeah, I mean, I as a young person, I actually had cancer, and I'm a cancer survivor, so I understand.
Oh wow, what kind of cancer?
I had a sarcoma.
Oh,
It was on my back.
oh
And
my.
I was actually lucky in that it grew outwardly.
Oh.
So it was easy that was actually what saved my life, because a lot of sarcomas grow internally, and if it had grown internally, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah, that's like on your spine.
Yeah,
it's like really controls everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was growing outwardly. So I had two operations and 10 weeks of radiation, and I've been cancer free since I was 27. I'm around 50 years old.
Wow, that's a great story. That's a very great survivor story.
Yeah, so I mean, I understand like chronic illness like that, because it's like, when you get something like that, it's, luckily I was able to get out of it. I mean, it could have been something that was like
Right, really, really crippling.
very crippling, but I was able to really turn it around, because I recognized it early. And that's with cancer, just anything. If you have a chronic illness, it's good to, go to the doctor if you see something weird going on. Don't like just say, well, I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of people don't, if they're not suffering from something, their health is not at the forefront.
Yeah, but everybody thinks they're invincible at a certain age. I mean, when I was 25, I didn't think anything was going to happen. So I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, when you are young, you're kind of granted this invincibility cloak, or you're given this cloak of invincibility because you're youthful, and you have all of your um, health about you, are supposedly, um, and nothing can kill you, nothing can harm you.
yeah.
But when you do grow up with something that is potentially life-threatening, or something chronic that you have to do daily regimens for when you're a child, you're not granted that invincibility like everyone else. It's a different kind of invincibility, let me say. And there are a lot of strong kids who have to do this every day, who have to face their condition every day.
I think it informs you as an artist. Like if you see if you go back and look at history, a lot of greatest artists actually had chronic conditions that kind of informed their art.
Oh yeah, it's a way to channel pain.
Yeah, you can
You
channel.
know, you can channel your pain into your art and use it as an outlet. That's what I did. I just, you know, being also, I haven't really spoken too much about this part of my life, but I am also clinically depressive, so I need another outlet to kind of channel those compulsive negative thoughts that I go through every day.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of coupled with my having cystic fibrosis, and we all have those challenges to work through. And I think really what speaks to you as a person is how you navigate those challenges. And having an outlet like art is a great way to maneuver having any condition, be it mental health or physical health. It creates this world where you can rise above whatever it is you're challenging, whatever it is just challenging you, and just and live. You know, you don't have to be stunted by things that are on a mental or physical level.
Yeah,
So I think art in a very large way is very medicinal.
yeah. I find that like music to me is like medicine, because because of the cancer, because of other things in my life that I took. I was kind of depressed myself, and I took that, those negative feelings, and I try to drive them into the art. It kind
Mm-hmm.
of create
Yeah.
creates the muse. And if you're a musician and you play, guitar, or you play keyboards, or you play synths or whatever, that pain tends to give you the most power if you know how to channel it through kind of art. If you look at Emily Dickinson, look at Blake, you look at a lot of great romantic poets,
Mm-hmm.
they were all channeling their kind of pain
Oh
into
yeah,
great art.
definitely,
And
definitely.
you see that in music too. You see the great, soul singers
Mm-hmm.
are able to channel their pain into the song.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Very true. My only um, kind of gripe with this as an artist is that there's this idea that we have to be in pain in
Oh
order to
yeah.
create art.
Well, you can be happy too.
I think you can be happy. It's just a great way to work through your pain and cope. But by no means do you need to be in pain to be a great artist.
No, no, yeah. I mean, it's a tool
It's
to,
a tool. Yeah.
like
It's being able to use something that you're feeling so emotionally wrought by.
I think you can take all your feelings. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're really in love with somebody, you can channel that into a beautiful song.
Of course.
If
Of course.
you're really happy, you can make a really nice happy song that makes everybody feel good.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like
It doesn't
like
have to be, yeah.
doesn't have to be like Kurt Cobain, or it doesn't have to be like a really dark place. Not that that isn't valid, and it is
Of
valid.
course. Yeah, no, it's valid. All forms of art
All
and every
are valid.
expression are valid. I
Yeah.
think it's just the way that we interpret.
Well, some people
Um,
try to say that kind of negative thing is more valid, and
the negative, because the negative thing is something that we give more credence to. We give it for some reason, we a lot of people associate negativity with reality. You know, the bad is more real than the good. The good is kind of this illusion or delusion.
yeah,
And but negativity is just the world
yeah.
and reality. And that's not true. That's not true. Good things are real just as much as bad things are real.
But you can take like a Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is real famous for taking very positive kind
Mm-hmm.
of feelings and putting them into music,
Yeah.
and making you feel good.
Yeah.
And he's able to channel like happiness. I
Mm-hmm.
think, like, you think about Bob Marley, he was
Yeah.
able to channel like happiness.
Yeah.
And so like when you have a great artist that can channel that, make people feel good. I mean, reggae music makes people feel good because Bob Marley was channeling this like really positive stuff.
Yeah.
And so that is, but then we get sometimes like rock critics will go and say like, well, the Velvet Underground is like the epitome, and that's a very dark band.
Yeah. No.
And that's
Yeah.
really cool, and I understand it, and I love Lou Reed, and I love what he did. But to
Mm-hmm.
act like that's the only legitimate kind of thing,
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it's a little much sometimes.
I think there's just the intensity of something is what dictates how much more valid it is over something else.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times pain can be more intense to people than the feeling of contentment and happiness.
Well, I think some people look at somebody content, they say, well, they're being kind of a happy-go-lucky kind of.
Yeah, well, I was. Yeah.
Maybe they don't think that that's valid. I think some
right.
people look at that and they say that's kind of like, oh, that's too happy.
Well, yeah. Well, like I said, a lot of people think that if you're happy, you're delusional, because how can you be happy in a world where there's and where there's hunger, and where people are, where there's suicide bombings, when there's devastation in so many forms, in different societies and different countries.
Yeah.
So I think that's why people are like, how could you be so delusional and happy?
Yeah.
In this kind of world.
Like Bobby McFerrin got slammed so hard for just be happy. And it's a great piece of art. But then he gets slammed because it's like, well, you're being politically insensitive to everything's going on. But then that's the art that he did.
Right. I mean, to live exclusively in one facet of life is just absolutism, and that's not that makes no sense. The world is not absolute.
Yeah.
It's not absolutely dark. It's not absolutely light. It's a gray area where you have to give weight to both things.
Yeah, you look at all the shades of light. Whether it goes to no light to intensity.
Right.
With music, there's all these different levels of intensity for that you can do. You can be very powerful. You can be very soft. You can make somebody feel love with music, just like an actor can do the same thing with acting. Musicians can kind of cause evocative feelings to happen.
Of course, it's all about how you emote through whatever it is you're doing as an art, and what your intention is behind you doing that art. If you want someone to feel love, the intention behind your choices as an actor or your music as a musician is going to go down a path where people feel that emotion, feel that love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that definitely the reason that people play up pain so much is because it's just a very intense emotion, and it's bankable. At the end of the day, I think it's all about the bottom dollar, bottom line. And it's something that people can make money off of.
Yeah, but you have to be careful, because if you reveal so much of yourself in any kind of art form, where you kind of make yourself such an open book and you make everybody know everything you're feeling, then sometimes you don't have that personal space for yourself.
Yeah, well, like I said before, I think there's a balance to how much because being an artist means that you are vulnerable. Because you revealing this part of yourself is very vulnerable.
Yeah, you're fragile.
Yeah,
you're showing your fragility, to the world.
And that can be very, very hard when you come back and try to have a relationship with your family, a relationship with your friends, a relationship with a romantic partner, because you're already exposing yourself in such a vulnerable way, and then you just wonder, how much do I have left over?
Yeah, because you're doing what you normally would do with your family or your partner.
Right.
You're showing that intimacy to the whole world.
Yeah. I had a very, I can't remember if it was a conversation or if it was another interview that I had, but I'm open with my body, and I do nudity in my films and in my modeling work. And people are asking me, well, how do you think how would it be if you were in a relationship, or how does your partner react? And what I had the answer to that is, if I'm doing a photo shoot, that's a photo shoot. Mm. I'm being vulnerable with my body in a certain way there, that I'm not vulnerable, that I'm not being with a partner. It's not like I'm not being vulnerable with my partner, but they are accessed, or they can access a vulnerability that I allow them to access, that I don't allow the public to access. Yeah. There is a line that I draw. I might pose in a way that might be vulnerable and sexy. But at the end of the day, I go home to my partner and they're exposed to a completely different vulnerability and a completely different, sexiness or whatever, or closeness or intimacy.
Yeah.
So it's all about knowing what is for who, I think, as an artist, understanding that I can be open with my audience and the people who admire my work, to a point, for my own peace of mind. And then I have my family, and then I have my friends, and then I have my lover, and I think it's hard to do that because you're compartmentalizing your your life and the level of vulnerability and intimacy that you reveal to certain people in your life. But I do think that I do think it's necessary. I do think it's necessary to have that.
Yeah, I think I understand that because like I think sometimes like when you're an artist, you get in the zone. Like if you do a performance, whether you're a musician, like if I'm a musician and I have this really deep thing where I reveal a lot in a song, and it's kind of like you get in a zone. You're kind of like the muse kind of takes you over. If you talk to like guys like Coltrane and Davis, and when they did some of their greatest work, they kind of say, "Well, it kind of just pours out of me."
Mm-hmm.
It kind of there's a lot of vulnerability, there's a lot of fragility. It just comes out, and you're kind of being totally honest.
Right. Yeah.
You see this with like a great artist like a Hendrix or a Santana when they give the best performance, they're being totally like open to all these things coming out, and sometimes like you can't really control it when you're in the middle of it, and then after you do it, then people want to go and say, well, what was this, what was that, and sometimes you really can't say like what happened. It just kind of happens.
Yeah.
And
No.
if people want you to be that way all the time, it's like, well, that was like a point in time. That was like something I did at that moment, and that's what I felt. It doesn't mean I'm going to feel like that every day or the next day or ever again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. It's true. It's sometimes in the moment you do have a release. You have an emotional release, and you can't stifle that. You can't stunt it. You just have to let all of it out. And that's the challenge of being an artist, is knowing that that's going to happen from time to time, and you're not going to have control over it. And that's the complexity of an artist. But I think being able to moderate and have a balance in your life, have some kind of way of determining when and where for how much you give in your art, I think those are good things to have as a guideline and benchmarks. So
I wanted to ask you, like a lot of musicians, like if they go do a concert and they do that performance in front of all those fans and they do that thing, they kind of get like really keyed up and they can't go to bed. They're like they just get really so locked into it that they have a hard time getting out.
mm-hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
happen with actors too? Like if you're working on a film and you're in that zone, do you have a hard time coming down from that zone? And how do you deal with that? How do you get out of it?
Yeah. I mean, I that's interesting because I that is very familiar to an actor. I didn't realize that musicians go through that so much, but that makes total sense to me that they do. That there is a high associated with performance, I think, in general, and coming down from that high is difficult. Because you have to have as an actor, yes, we go through that. It's hard to break out of something that makes you feel so stimulated. There's different roles that I've done in the past that I trap myself in, and I've gotten better at getting out of it. But you get stuck, and it affects your personal life. It affects your day to day.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's difficult. I had to play a character that was just had a lot of emotional trauma, and to play that for me authentically, I have to tap into my own trauma access that and bring that up and live it and understand it so that I can convey it better to an audience. And once you have opened up that wound, so to speak, it's hard to close it up again.
Yeah.
And so as an actor or an artist, I think you have to understand that that's something that if that's how you work, because I'm sure not every artist does that. But if that is how you work, you have to have your process of healing again. You're constantly having to heal and heal and heal every time you perform, every time you open yourself up to your audience. So I've gotten much better at it. But it took some learning. I had to learn how to do that. It wasn't easy. But it does happen for actors just as it does for musicians. You get trapped.
Yeah, you kind of get stuck in the role. I mean, sometimes they get, you play that character. I think David Bowie used to sometimes, he dropped Ziggy because he was becoming Ziggy.
Yeah.
And he had to get out of it because he was just like, he was living like Ziggy. He created Ziggy and then he couldn't get out of it.
Yeah, that's what I mean by the whole sexy badass thing. I mean, I'm definitely not on David Bowie level with that, but I think there is something to be said about when you create a persona and then you get lost in it and you lose yourself. Because then you have there's this idea of you from your audience about how you should be portraying yourself as that character. Ziggy acts this way to my audience. Therefore, I must act that way in life. For me, a badass acts a certain way. So I'm not allowed to do certain things based on the preconceived notions of someone else. And that's the trap. That's an unhealthy cycle that you can get yourself into, is basing all of your persona decisions on your audience, because they're the people who are supporting this persona, who want to see it. So I think it's about monitoring and really understanding that this persona that you have does not have to walk beside you all the time.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't need to be something that the mask that you wear constantly. You're allowed to breathe. You're allowed to be that character here, and I don't have to be it here. I purposely try not to wear my leather jackets all the time, because that's a character that people see,
Yeah, that's how they see you. They see you a badass with the leather.
Yeah, with the leather and the safety pins and, that look. But I'm more than just that, and I get so into, it's fun to be that. It's fun doing that. It's fun having that part of my personality be so sought after. But that's a trap. That can be very unhealthy to always live in that, and you have to find a space for it and a space away from it so that you can live fully.
Yeah, that's why I kind of created like the characters I create in my music, because I wanted to have like my audience see me as like Phantom Electric Ghost or Josephine Electric, and I play like this duality. Like my character is like, male part of him is Phantom Electric Ghost, and then the female is Josephine Electric, and I play both.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
It's like, but I'm Keith Gittens Jones. That's who I am. But the characters I play in my electronic music, I kind of play these characters that are part of me. That I created these characters that are part of me, but I can separate from them because I kind of, in an electronic way, the way Deadmau5 wears his helmet, or other electronic artists, they kind of go out in the stagecraft, and then they have that stagecraft separate from who they actually are.
Right.
So I've been able to kind of walk that line that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's good, being able to understand that there is a line. Because I'm sure there are a lot of artists that it's hard for them to see that line and to live a life of duality in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the traditional rock star, they come out there and they have that image and then they end up living it because they have all these fans, all these people have these expectations that they do it. But then like with this new kind of electronic art, people can kind of represent all kinds of images and they kind of play characters and then they kind of separate it from themselves. They don't have to be up there and be Mick Jagger. They don't have to be Keith Richards and live up to that reputation.
Right. I think I think nowadays too, sorry, people are more open to the idea of persona being on stage.
Yeah,
not being real life. I think people understand the difference now. I think back when being a rock star and being a pop artist was so new, people didn't understand the line was there, that these people were not just that. And so over the years, I think there's been a better understanding that these personas that we see on stage are just that. They're personas that are there to entertain us. Just like an actor is playing a character on a TV show. Dave Duchovny is not just, Mulder.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just walk up to Dave and be like, what's going on in Area 51? He's not Mulder. He's not. Yeah. I don't know how old your audience is. It's probably like dating myself.
No, but I think they would get it.
But yeah, I mean, an actor plays a character. Johnny Depp is not Jack Sparrow. As much as I'm sure he likes to believe it, he's not.
Yeah.
He's Johnny Depp, and that's a completely different life than Captain Jack.
Yeah. It's like people get like typecast and they get stuck in a role.
Mm-hmm. And but it's hard. I think it is harder for a musician because an actor has themselves as an actor at the end of the day. Like, this is my character that I'm playing in this film, and I'm jumping from this other film, and
whereas the problem is like if you're in a big band like the Eagles, you're Joe Walsh. There's all these expectations that Joe Walsh is a crazy man.
Right.
All these expectations that Keith Moon was a wild man.
Right. Exactly.
And John Bonham was a wild man, and they had to like live up to it.
Right. Exactly. Because that was who they were. There was no, okay, I'm going from this band to this band and I'm playing different parts in each. It was, this is your band, this is who you are, this is your life.
Yeah, that's fairly destructive because they weren't able to get out of it,
Yeah, and I think but like I said, I think it's changing now where the audience, or at least the artist, is taking back their own persona and taking that back. Like, I'm not going to walk around like this all the time,
Yeah.
I might.
You take your power back.
Yeah, you have to take your power back and realize that, I know that this is marketable and I know this is why people buy my tickets, but I'm not, I don't need to be this 24/7. I don't need to step out of my house and this is my character all the time. I think that a lot of that is being changed because it's not healthy to play into that.
It's taken away so many great artists because they felt like they had to do it, and they were on the train, and they couldn't get off the track, and it was disappointing because they all kind of fell into, and they couldn't get out of it, and probably the record companies weren't like helping them get off of it because they were making money on it. So
and that's the problem, is that a lot of it comes down to the bottom line and how much money they're making, and if it's lucrative for them, they're gonna keep you in that space.
Yeah, so you kind of gotta push against it, even though it's bringing you your money and it's bringing you your fame. It might take you out, so you have to balance it out. How much are you gonna do that? so you might not be here.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna take from your life in a large way, unfortunately.
Well, I have kind of kept you over an hour, and so it's really great to talk to you again. And
Yeah.
I love being able to do this with artists like yourself. You were the first actor, I think, the only actor I ever talked to. And I want to continue talking to different types of people. I've talked to graphic artists and DJs and other multiple genres of music. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're always interested in talking to all types of people.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if I know more artists that are looking to have conversations and get themselves out there, I'll definitely throw them your way.
Yeah, if they're filmmakers that want to draw attention to the project they're doing, and they haven't been able to get interviews, and they want to get an interview out there, and go out on a podcast, and they kind of push it out. I'm interested in talking to like all types of artists, all multiple genres, like from the actors to the producers to film directors, and people who are starting out. So if there's anybody that's interested that you think would want to do this, it would be cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll let you know.
That's great. So I will send you the link for this and let you know when it's published in all the other places. And I'm going to put our previous conversation from 2017 as a segment on here.
Awesome.
But it will be there. And
Yay.
you take care of yourself. And I'm looking forward to hearing about any of your new projects. And when your films are ready or out and you want to talk again, let me know.
I will definitely. Thank you. Sorry, I got really coffee at the end.
No, I figure.
Yeah, it's just part of my life.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, take care of yourself, and I really appreciate coming on the Anchor, and we'll talk again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Hi, Keith.
So we have Jes Davis.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm happy because you're the final guest for 2017.
Oh wow. Okay. So it's kind of an honorary title there. Event.
Yeah, we've been branching out. We initially started interviewing just musicians, and then we branched into like graphic artists with a guy named Adam from Chernobel.com in Germany.
Oh, sweet. Oh, nice.
And we also have on deck some directors that we're going to be talking to going into 2018.
Great.
So
you have like a nice full roster there.
Yeah, I've got maybe four
Sounds
more
like
people to talk to going into 2018.
That'd be great.
So we're excited to have our first actor. You're the first actor model to be interviewed on this show. So that's really cool.
Yes, it's good to be the first something. Because then otherwise your life doesn't amount to anything. Awesome.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of get into your background because you started. I was watching the videos you sent me, and you had started with kind of doing like fashion and like your Etsy business and your clothing, and then you started to branch into the acting. And maybe want you to kind of go into maybe talking about that directly, and then maybe we can play one of your clips.
Oh, sure. So it's actually I started acting before I was designing. Acting has been like my primary art. It's just they kind of overlap because I was essentially, I like to fuck up clothes for myself. And I just would, I would design things for me. And so I was doing that while acting. And then it kind of picked up because people were asking me where I got my clothes, but I was still an actor. So it didn't, the designing thing didn't professionally for me take off until about a year ago. I was at like this high profile party in LA, and I designed my outfit, and I just got a lot of people asking me about it. But I've been acting for a good like 10, 12 years. So I just decided to kind of see where design would take me. But I still act. My focus is still acting. So
Well, it looks like you're on a lot of big projects. Like you're filming that new like movie. You're on that
Yeah.
role on
Yeah.
New Black, and then you got that other TV show you just started.
Yeah. I have a few projects right now that are kind of, we're really trying to pitch and get some backing. But a lot of the things that I do are self-made in terms of, I work with a lot of, independent producers and
Yep.
directors who just they put all their work together on their own, and then they take it around and they sell it to different people, or they try to sell it to different people. So, but yeah, a lot of projects going on right now. A lot of projects going on.
Well, it's really cool that you actually have those recurring roles on TV, and yeah.
Yeah. The reoccurring roles are nice. It's steady. But like I said, because acting is like my number one goal right now,
Mm-hmm.
um, the goal for me is to actually get to a place where I'm doing something more consistent than the roles that I've been that I've had in the past, and that just means I want something that's more substantial, more character driven.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's with every artist, they want something substantial for their work, and so that for me as an actor, that's what I want.
So your acting style, like in terms of like your reference points, would you say that you are kind of like a method type of actor, or what type of style are you?
I've had so many questions about that. I feel so fucking pretentious answering that question. I feel like, oh, this asshole. Let's see what she has to say about the method. Um, but my introduction to acting was just storytelling. And if you want to be a good storyteller, you completely submerge yourself into the story that you're telling. So I guess for a lot of people that can translate as method, when you fully, immerse yourself into a character or a story. But that's how it's real for me, and that's how I can sell it to the audience better. If it's not real for me or tangible for me in some way, it's harder for me to believe that someone else would believe that this world that I'm in is real. So I have to make it as real as I can, which can be a detriment to me as a person. It can be a little bit tough, but I think for me, I kind of go between method and other types of acting, like whatever the project calls for, and whatever I can get the best result out of, that's what I do. But I guess you could say my default mechanism for acting would be method, how
Do
I
you
perceive it.
do you kind of like merge like other like things like music? It seems like there's somewhat of like a punk aesthetic to what you're doing. If you think
I mean, in terms of the punk aesthetic is purely for my brand as a fashion designer.
Mhm.
That kind of angst, I guess you could say, lives in a lot of the things that I do. But I don't purely derive, my acting ability or influence from punk, unless the role is particularly punk or grunge or, alternative. If I'm supposed to be playing like a Nancy Sid kind of character, or a Courtney Love character, then yeah, definitely. But for the most part, the punk just stays within the fashion world that
Yeah,
I
because
live in.
I was looking at Tragic, and that doesn't have that aesthetic. It's kind of like
Oh
period.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a period piece, and like I said, if something calls for there to be some kind of angst, then I try to pull from wherever that angst will be the most, I guess, um, real and authentic. So if any way, the character in Tragic needed to have some kind of angst, then I might pull from that. But for the most part, it just kind of depends what it is.
So if you like have reference points or influences, who do you say that you were influenced by to become an actor?
That's also a very tough question. I love a lot of different actors. My father is he's a musician, but he was very into films. So we watched a lot of movies as when I was growing up. So there's a lot of actors that I just grew up watching and wanting to emulate. I think one of the actors I really appreciated as a kid growing up was uh, Jimmy Stewart.
Oh wow, a classic
Yeah,
actor. Yeah,
I know a lot of classic. It's so weird to call it classic now because yeah, it is so old. But I that's where I watched. That's where my movie career started, was watching that era type film. You know, like Citizen Kane.
yeah, the writing.
Yeah, that era of filmmaking with like James Dean and um, those actors way back that people don't really
I was
talk
kind of
about.
thinking like Brando, the Wild Ones, has a little bit of like that kind of like what you're rebelling against, like everything, what you got.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You there's a lot of rebel in a lot of the characters that Brando plays.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
it's
like,
like last Tango in Paris definitely was like a very
yeah,
was very anti the masculine motif of that era,
yeah. He was always,
very, very. I think he was always kind of a go against the grain type actor, which is why people were so intrigued by him, because he represented kind of this macho persona, but he would not really play into that. He would play these really sensitive, dark characters that people just didn't expect. And that's why I think people really appreciated him as an actor. But yeah, I really, Brando, I didn't watch so much of Brando, but I appreciate him. And yeah, Jimmy Stewart was one of the actors I really loved. And James Dean, I love James Dean.
yeah,
And
awesome.
what we were able to see of him, he only did, I think, was 3 films. He only did
Yeah,
3. Yeah,
and
and
like,
then he had like little stint on TV every once in a while. He would do like a TV show when he was first starting out. And I think he did like maybe a play or 2. But you didn't get to see a lot from James. He
yeah,
was
kind
a.
of like,
Mhm. But outside of those, outside of the actors from that era, I really love Kate Blanchett, Christian Bale, Kate Winslet, Mahershala Ali. Actually, Mahershala Ali and I are from the same town in California,
wow.
which is really funny. I met him once. I got my first headshots done when I was 18, and we had the same headshot photographer, which is really, really funny and cool.
But now
um,
you're in New York City right now, right?
well, yeah, and he's also in New York. Like that's where he went too. After California, he kind of booked it to New York, and yeah, I've been following his career. I'm so proud of him. Even though I've never really like had a chance to sit down and talk to him and bond, but it's nice to see that he stuck with it, and his he's gotten wildly successful. Even with the small parts he had. I don't think anybody really remembers him in Hunger Games and with Moonlight having come out, but he
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of little parts. So
So are you really into the New York scene versus the LA scene? Like now you're thinking that's like the way to go, where you are?
I don't think so. I think that's kind of dated. That's a little dated to say that New York and LA are the only places,
Mm-hmm.
because you have so many ways of
Doing things.
doing doing your own projects. I mean, if you go to Amazon .com or amazonstudios.com, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing on their page is submit your project, and you don't have to necessarily be in LA or New York to submit a project.
Mm-hmm.
You can film anywhere and submit your stuff. So I think that the idea that you need to be in New York or LA is a little archaic, and it's antiquated. It's not useful. If you want to be anywhere in this business, you just got to know how to market yourself and know who to push your project to.
Yeah, it's the same thing with music now. Like everybody's got Pro Tools and they're on better studio. And
you've got SoundCloud, Instagram. Again, like the main place to market yourself is Instagram, Facebook. Pinterest. I have a Pinterest now.
Well, I found you on your Instagram. That's kind of like where I found like your presence is like very.
Good. It's working. Because I'm more of like the antisocial person. So on social media where I just, I can be very private about things. So the idea of putting myself out there in that way is a little, it's just not, it doesn't come as natural to me as it would someone else in terms of marketing. So I've had to learn, what kind of content to put out and how to present myself and everything. But I don't want to do it in an inauthentic way. I hate, taking on a persona that isn't mine. So, me being a punky, grungy girl from the Bay Area of California is true. But, I do it to the extent that it will actually help me work and help me work with people I want to work with.
So is that all like self done on Instagram, or you work?
Oh yeah, that's all me. That's all me. I'm too much of a control freak to let anybody else do it. No, if someone would like to help me, that's totally fine. But I have a very clear way that I want to be represented, and I don't want. Again, I want things to be authentic when it comes from me in any facet. So whether it be designing or my artwork, because I paint as well, or my acting, I want it all to be perceived as genuine. I don't want anything to be a front. So I think it's best if I have control over that. And I think that's kind of the point of having social media, so that you can appropriately and properly represent yourself.
So for your art, are you thinking about doing like gallery showings? Are you at that level?
I would love to. Essentially all the stuff that I've been doing outside of the acting has just been for me. So my fashion was just for me, so that I could feel good. My artwork was pretty much a therapy for me, so I could stay sane and not kill people. And it's kind of funny that now people actually appreciate the artwork. And so I have been looking into showcasing my jacket pieces in galleries, my collage art and painting in galleries. Right now, it's pretty much been confined to my design brand. I do everything under Tunk. So a lot of my collage pieces will be on shirts or phone cases or mugs, stuff like that. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know how to navigate the art world in terms of gallery. That's like a completely different thing that I just don't know how to fucking do. But I'll figure it out. It can't be that hard. You just put some shit in the room and people look at it. So how hard can that be? Just look at it. It's simple, and it shall present itself in a simple way.
Yeah, I think as you start to increase your profile, I think it gets easier to get galleries to
it's true. And I've talked to so many people who are in my field in entertainment, whether they be a musician or an actor or an artist of some sort. It's all about your follower count. It's all about how many people you can reach, because people who are going to book you are looking at that, because they're just like, well, that's going to bring people in and be beneficial to everyone involved. So, I used to just hate the whole like 50,000 followers and 100,000 million followers. Now I'm understanding that it's not so, because I used to associate it with this ego trip that people are like, oh my god, I have to have so many followers because it makes me feel good. But actually, I was talking to one of my musician friends. He's like, no, I could give a fuck about the people following me. Really, it's about me getting booked. It's more so about me being able to do my art. He's like, I care about my followers and I love them, but I'm not doing it as an ego trip. He's like, I want to be able to work and support myself. And if I need to have a certain amount of followers to get booked at a venue, then yeah, I'm gonna try and do that. So I think that's where I think a lot of people have like this disconnect where they, they're like, I don't want to take a selfie a day, and that's so vain. But hey, if that selfie gets me booked on like a show, then great. That I will take that, or I will promote my videos and stuff so that I can get work. So
Yeah, I think a lot of musicians. I think because I'm in that group of musicians, and a lot
mm-hmm.
I felt like, oh well, you sell out if you get too many people. It's
you
trying to
know
be.
that's all. I think the idea of selling out, I think that's just a way for people to claim this elitism about art. And art shouldn't be confined to this elitist community, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be for everyone. So if I've had that kind of back and forth in my mind, about the punk thing. I just felt like, oh, I'm selling out as a genuine, authentic punk. Like, I'm not supposed to be trying to sell this to like little Miss Preppy here who has all of daddy's money and can buy my jacket, but the thing is, you have to understand that your artwork is supposed to reach people that are not just like you. That I think that's what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to bring people together. And you can't just like hide it away in your little corner just for you and your peers, because then how much are you guys going to actually grow and learn from that? Because that is already your life. You could extend your art to someone who's not a part of your group, and they could possibly learn something and grow from that, the experience of being in the presence of your artwork. So that's how I see people who say that it's selling out. It's not selling out. It's just you being fucking hater about it.
Yeah,
And grow the fuck up. Like, this is how it works. We live in a capitalist society. What, do you want me to starve? I don't like starving. I fucking
yeah.
hate capitalism, but I can't change that shit overnight. So
I
like,
think it's more about like self-actualization. Like think about like David Bowie when he was just
yeah.
David Jones, then he became Ziggy.
Mm-hmm.
Ziggy kind of self-actualized, and it became
Right. Yeah.
a very artistic statement. Totally out there, totally not what was being done, and but
Mm-hmm.
he became the rock star that Ziggy was. It was a story, it was a concept. But
Right. Yeah.
you can take art and you can do art, and then you can become successful. And it's like, well, wait, you can't throw that away or kind of be upset about it. Well, you can. I mean, a lot of people get tortured about it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to like realize what is it that you want to do. You want to be that rock star. You want to be that actor. You want to do that. Be the artist. You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, you do. You have to, and you have to. I mean, think the main thing about being an artist is being vulnerable, and putting that vulnerability out there for everyone to, either accept, ridicule, judge you for. It's all out there. So, I mean, and that helps the artist grow to some extent. And it's just the life that you choose as an artist is putting yourself out there and accepting that people are not always going to like it. People are going to say you're selling out. People are going to call you a poser. They're going to, they're saying these negative things, but there's also going to be the positive things. And it's just going to you have to put yourself in a place of understanding that you don't need all of these opinions to define you and validate you. It's like, okay, I'm just grain of salt, everything. So.
So if I'm going to play a clip, what clip would you want people to hear?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because there are some things that I just don't I don't want to be played. But I have them up there because I don't want to be ashamed of anything I do. But at the same time, I'm just like, oh God, that's cringeworthy. Um, I guess you can play. You want to play something that where people are watching me, right?
Well, they're not going to actually see it. They're just going to hear it.
Oh, they're just gonna hear it.
Yeah, I was looking at Tragic. I like Tragic, but I don't know if you like it.
Oh yeah, I
So,
love Tragic. You can play that one. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. If you want to play that one.
Okay, so I'm going to play that. Just go on mute for a second. And then when it comes off, then we'll talk about it on the back end of it.
Awesome.
So, okay, thanks.
Suddenly become what?
You promised me you would not sell him.
For him you were
He
refined.
was my baby brother, Colin.
The events of the past few days could not be prevented.
You promised me. You promised.
Your baby brother was beginning to think too high of himself.
He was not yet 15.
We talk of running. Did you know?
I told him to put such thoughts out of his head. He's just a boy. He wouldn't have.
He is lucky. A trade has only suffered for his insolence. Father was ready to have him whipped, have his tendons removed, so he never speak of running again. And I thought of you like I always do.
Please, I will do anything you desire. Just please bring him back to me.
I know how this works.
I know how you work.
You are beginning to irritate me.
You want my body. You want my soul. Take it. He was all that I had. All that I have. And you took him from me. I hate you. I hate you.
I may be fond of you, but remember your place.
As long as you remember yours, brother.
What did you call me?
Colin?
What did you just call me?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, Adam, what am I to do with you?
So that was tragic, Jes Davis. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good performance. I was just like, I was looking at you have so many other really good performances, but I liked that one because it was a little different than some of the modern stuff. So I thought it was kind of cool to show that one.
Yeah, that piece was actually a play first, which I also have clips of the play that I did. And that was about a year ago. The play went up here in New York at a theater called the Theater for the New City in the East Village on the East Side. And the play got so much praise that we were actually able to make a film. And right now it's being submitted to film festivals. And actually the theater is having us back to do like a little short one act of the characters that you saw, Annabelle and Colin, for a theater festival. So a lot of people like that character dynamic and like that story. So I'm really great. Yeah. I'm really grateful to Marvel Pert, who is the director and writer of that story. She recently just closed another play at the same theater, different story. So she's a great writer, and we might be working together on some newer stuff. But yeah, that piece. A lot of people like it. A lot of people, really respond to that piece of work. So
I was gonna ask you, like, how do you get into like the recurring roles like you have on television, on Netflix, and big studios? How is it that I think a lot of the fans on Span would like kind of know like what process? How do you do that? How do you get to that point?
Well, I now I have an agent, but I didn't get those recurring roles from my agent because I didn't have one at the time. I pretty much listed myself. I went to a background casting agency, and it just worked out that they really liked me for those parts and wanted to use me as a recurring role on those shows. So that was how I got that. And I think the reason that I was able to actually get my agent to represent me was because I had such strong TV credits where I was, obviously your work speaks for itself. If you're able to show up and be there and be present for 4 seasons of a major TV show, that speaks volumes to people. So that's how I did it. That's how I got those roles. But like I said, the goal is now to get roles that are more substantial and prominent. So
are you looking to do like lead?
yeah, I would love to do lead stuff. I want to be as versatile as possible. It would be great one of my goals that I have for myself. I know it might never happen, but it's nice to think about. I would love to play Catwoman. I think that would be really fun. And I'd love to. I'd love to be doing some kind of. I'm a really big comic book person. So
I
I'd
think
love
you
to
can really redefine that, because I think the people who have done it have kind of maybe not done it in a way the way I see you act. I think you could really redefine it.
I would love to redefine it because I think you kind of get stuck playing it a certain way that comes off as a stereotype and a trope that we see a lot. And those stereotypes and tropes are very two-dimensional, and it doesn't really give you much in the way of this is an actual person, and not just a comic book character. Mm-hmm. And as a kid who grew up reading comics and watching all the Saturday morning cartoons that were Marvel and DC, I saw them as full-fledged people. I didn't just see them as like Batman. I saw it as, oh, that kid had a fucked up childhood and now he runs around in a mask and a cape because he has emotional problems. But that's just me as a person, as a little child. As a kid, I saw people and I just wanted to know more about them. They weren't just heroes to me. They were people. So I think when you're doing, I think now it's gotten a lot better. We see a lot of the characters now that are in the DCEU and the MCU being portrayed as full-fledged people, and not just.
I was a comic fan for a long time, and I was like initially a fan of like Kirby Ditko, early '60s Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
which did actually bring the kind of frailty to the characters. Like a Peter Parker is not like Superman. He's not like Batman.
Oh no, he's not. He's not. And even Superman and Batman aren't perceivably like who people think they are.
Bob Kane Batman is not like what people would think.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's just been very. Oh God, I don't know if I was on mute that whole time. Was I on mute that whole time?
No, you were
okay. I just saw the mute button. I was like, oh no, is that on? But I think that a lot of the times just people see one side of that character. They see Superman as Superman, and they don't really see Clark Kent having to struggle with being Superman. Bruce having to struggle with being Bruce, and not in so much of the way that we kind of see it in a two-dimensional way, but there's like a lot of layers to these characters that I think are just now coming to the surface, and we're being able to see them as more dimensional than I think we ever have
I
in the
think they're
past.
actually paying attention to like the Neil Adams and the Frank Millers and the Alan Moores. The really
Oh yeah, the really good writers. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Alan Moore with Watchmen. The comedian is such a dynamic character. That character is so, there's so much. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I think he did a pretty good job with him.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite movie from DC is the Watchmen.
Yeah, I mean, I still have nightmares about Dr. Manhattan's big blue dick in my face, but I tend to overlook things. It's fine. Billy Crudup can, he's actually very small in person, Billy Crudup. I did a show with him once, and they're even like, oh, you're kind of, you're bite size. Cool. It's not there's nothing wrong with being bite sized. You're just, a lot of these actors are not as big as they are. But yeah, Watchmen was I digress. Watchmen was a good DC movie. I'm a little disappointed now with the DC things that we've gotten. I didn't see Justice League just because I knew that was going to be a shit show.
Yeah, I think Woman was a better film, but I'm kind of disappointing they weren't able to keep it.
Yeah, well, I think at the same time, you got to grade Wonder Woman on a curve. It's coming up against all these really shit movies. So of course it was going to do really well. Not to say that it wasn't great, but I think you give it some okay, you had they kind of learned their lesson from Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel. Both of those movies were lacking in a lot of different areas that they kind of tried to make up for in Wonder Woman. So I think them paying attention was why people like that movie so much. And then they kind of went back and fucked up again with Justice League.
It seems like they got Dark Knight right, with the Dark Knight,
Yeah, well, that's a completely now we're talking about two different universes. That's Nolan. That's a Nolan verse. That you're afforded with more fleshed out characters, because Nolan doesn't he's not doing comic book. He looks at character and he looks at story. So it was nice to see this could actually happen in the real world. I was really I wish he would do Mr. Freeze. I wish he would do Victor Freeze, because I wonder how that would look in a real world setting instead of campy comic book world. What kind of science would he implement in his film to get Dr. Freeze to be Mr. Freeze? But again, Zack Snyder, I can talk for hours about this, because it for DC, it just, to me, it seems like they're trying to play catch up with Marvel.
Seems like Marvel has a better overall concept than execution.
Well, they have Kevin Feige, who is the I guess he's the producer or something. He's the head guy in charge at Marvel, and he obviously had a plan, and there's no plan at DC. I just heard that DC they're not going to do any more characters going in each other's movies. So you're not going to see Wonder Woman pop up in Aquaman or Batman. They're just going to be standalone movies, which is well, why are you doing that if you have the Justice League? That doesn't make a lot of sense. So they need to completely revamp their vision for the world that they're creating in the cinematic universe, because they obviously don't have one.
I think Marvel always had an edge, even in the comic books. They had this integration that went back to Kirby and Lee. Kirby was doing all the books. And so they all connected with Stan Lee, and Kirby were doing almost every book in the 60s.
Right, yeah. So they made the universes collide. And so it was just very well thought out worlds that they were creating. I love the Marvel characters. I think that DC, just the only reason that they still kind of exist now is because they have such strong characters.
Kind of the base characters of going back to the Superman, Batman, the Bob Kane and the original Superman.
They also just have really great villains, like I that's one thing I'll say about DC is like I love their villains. Like I could give a fuck about purple Thanos. I really don't care. But I'm gonna see the movie. I'm gonna see it. I don't really care about Thanos, although it looks like he's gonna be kind of the dark side of Marvel. And DC is going to introduce Darkseid at some point with the introduction of like Steppenwolf. I digress. Stop talking about that. But I think that DC has some really good core characters, which is why they were able to sustain for so long. So.
I think Marvel just kept on replicating Galactus. Like, we came up with Galactus, he came up with Doctor Doom. And then the tendency to replicate the Kirby iconic characters. I mean, even Darkseid is like that's Kirby. Kirby created.
Yeah,
it's like Kirby had so much, created so many characters that crossed between both companies.
Right. Yeah, and it just worked though. It was just a lot more fun than what we're kind of getting now.
Yeah, just because other people involved, like at DC, had different artists and writers. It wasn't all like Kirby. At Marvel was like Kirby kind of created like everything. So it's kind of like this unified concept, which works really good, but then it's a detriment in some ways because then you don't get the maybe the diversity that you could get. I think that's part of the problem. But
yeah, I completely agree with that because it's you don't want to just paint yourself into a corner with these characters, and you need to give them a platform to exist. And
now it's hard for a lot of comic artists don't want to give up new characters to big companies because they'll rather go to like Image or Dark Horse and make their own character than to give it to Marvel or DC. They keep on recycling the old characters because they can't get any of the guys creator or owned artists to create new characters.
And I mean, I don't even think I think Marvel came out and said that they're not creating any more X-Men, even though they have like a plethora to choose from. They're not creating any more, but that's purely out of spite because they don't want Fox making any more movies. But it makes more sense to not get into the whole studio battle. So I understand why artists would do that.
Yeah, they just don't want to get all their royalties like taken away, and they get work for hire, and then they don't get paid for creating these characters. So,
it's better for them to have creative control and know where their characters are going and know that they're going to be used and they're going to they're going to be noticed and recognized for their work. So.
You got a guy like Miller doing Sin City instead of giving Marvel another character,
Oh yeah, I would rather. I mean, I love Sin City. That's like my favorite graphic novel series. I've read that so many times. I would prefer that to another X-Men character.
Yeah, well, he gave him Elektra. Just because at the time didn't think about it. But
and Elektra. Yeah, right. I mean, he can find another way to come up with a really badass female hero. I think he didn't really need Elektra for that, so I'm okay with that. I'm all right. I'm all right with that.
It's so like you do art, you do film. Do you do any music? Do you have like any thoughts of doing any like music projects at all?
Well, I when I first moved to New York, I would sing in jazz clubs. I sing jazz. I don't know if you can tell, but I have kind of like a smoker voice. Yeah. I don't smoke. I've got a lung condition that causes me to cough and have a raspy voice. So I guess I'm lucky that way, that I can just, I can use it. So I do sing. I have like a couple videos on my Instagram of me singing. But I came to New York and I was singing in jazz clubs, and what I'm working on kind of back burner as a passion project is I would love to play Josephine Baker in a film. Yeah, I would love to play her, and I'm reading up about her now, and I would love to just adapt her story into a film, and kind of similarly to like what they did with La Vie en Rose with Edith Piaf and Marianne Cotillard. Um, just bringing the songstress story to life, and because we don't have a lot of stories about Black female singers.
No,
I don't, we had, I think Beyonce played Etta James, and then you had Dreamgirls.
yeah,
And then I think, was it Bessie Smith was played by Queen Latifah?
yeah.
Is that, her name was Bessie, right? So you don't have a lot. You don't have a lot. And I think there was like one movie that was done back in like either the mid 90s or late 90s of Josephine Baker, but it was I think it was a TV movie. But nothing like, nothing has been done since then.
Yeah, I think
So I would really, and then everyone got all upset at Zoe Saldana for doing Nina Simone. So that didn't get a lot of play. So we don't have any, movies where Black female musicians are actually being, recognized, and talked about.
yeah, I think it's across the board, when it comes to African American, any of the stuff that we need to show, because because I'm a big rock and roller, but like rock and roll came from guys like Leadbelly, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
thinks it's like right there.
Yeah, Leadbelly. I mean, that's where Kurt Cobain, where did you sleep last night? Came from Leadbelly.
Yeah, I mean, half the Zeppelin, they didn't credit them, they wouldn't credit the great Black artist, and a lot of people don't know, rock and roll, it comes
from blues.
It comes from that whole
that
whole story is like that's us. Hendrix kind of showed everybody that that's really rock. Rock is like our thing, but then when it gets taken, everybody forgets, and then he's like, oh, not that the Eddie Van Halens and the Ozzy's are not cool. They're cool, but for people not to realize that that's our art form, just like jazz. It's like it's kind of disappointing because I'm a Black musician. Being a Black musician is like you go to a club and people think like, oh, you can't play a rock club when you're a Black musician because you're supposed to be able to do rock. But that's what I do.
No, it's true. I mean, I
get people to accept it.
I come across the same thing, because I listen to a lot of alternative and punk and grunge music, rock music. I grew up listening to Pink Floyd and Eric Clapton and the Police. Love the Police. I actually got to see them in concert like when I was 18. So I grew up listening to a lot of rock, and so it is really a lot of people just don't. This is just people staying into like the two-dimensional world of how they see things with people. So it's like obviously if you're Black, you should like R&B and rap and soul and blues and all of that, which is totally fine to like, but that's not all that you as a person can like, and it doesn't need to be, oh, I'm Black, I have to like this. I've always been the outsider on that. I got picked on because I wasn't quote Black enough.
Well, I always tell young folks, because I'm like 50, and I tell young men, they're like, oh, that's like white rock, that's white music. I said it comes from like the Chuck Berrys and Leadbellies. You don't know, you don't know your history. You don't know. It's like we own that. That's us.
It might not be Mick Jagger. It doesn't look like us, but he's singing songs that are from our
That's what we created.
It came from that, and I don't mind people using that and for some but it is nice to have that recognition, just to acknowledge where something came from. I think that's where we are now.
The Stones are cool about it now. They acknowledge where they got their stuff from. They help support some of the old blues guys. Keith Richards is always like going around like helping them and doing stuff to get more attention drawn to and help them with their medical stuff. But
that's good now. Where were you back then?
Like that back in the day, in the 70s, maybe you weren't doing that.
Well, no, because there is still the issue of race back then. Yeah. So it was an association meant one thing. So they had to keep up appearances.
Yeah.
So that which sucks, but you know, I think we're steadily putting an end to that shit now.
Well,
But yeah, I
what's really
think
cool now is like a mixture of multiple genres. Like the best
mm-hmm.
music is when you see, you know, somebody like Kendrick Lamar mixing jazz with like funk and rock, and you know, working with U2, working with different people, showing that you just don't get stuck in one lane. That you do more than that. I think that's where you see cool stuff happen.
I think that's just also just bringing it back to just art in general. That's where a lot of things happen, is like you're collaborating and really nurturing your collaborations with people. I think is the best thing that you can do. It's the most benefit to the creator.
So as an actor, how do you well, I guess you collaborate with the writers and directors.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other ways to collaborate, you know, in acting?
I like to collaborate. I mean, what I do in order to kind of branch out is I just put my work out there, and then whoever wants to collaborate with me will be like, "Hey, Jess, let's do this project together." Like I auditioned for this role, the taste role, which is also up there. And you know, it was just a little like I play like an escort, I play a prostitute. But on the strength of that performance, which a lot of people really appreciated, I was able to work with that director again in a lead role. And that's been getting a lot of traction right now. So it's just like your collaborations come from the work that you already do, you know, and you know, talking to people about the work that you're doing. So I just put my work out there, and I try to work with as many people as I can. And then if I have an idea and I think that it can be executed with, you know, XYZ person or people, I will shop it around to them and make sure that it's beneficial for everybody, because we're all just trying to make it and sustain a living and feed ourselves, I think, with our artwork. So, you know, and that's my main goal. Is I was talking to somebody the other day about that. It's like we need to really just tap into our community of people whom we know are hardworking and who are very creative and who will really be committed to making a project be the best that it can be. So we just need to lift each other up in that sense.
So do you see that as like a lot of musicians have like collectives, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of
actors as like collective type things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's I don't know if this is true for musicians, if they have like a specific collective that's like named and has an organization behind it. But I think for actors, it's just, oh, you worked with so and so, I've worked with so and so. That's funny. Maybe we should work together. Or like, oh, we've actually worked in the same theater, or we've worked on the same project at different times. You know, if you've got like a show that's going on and just keeps getting recast. I did 12 Angry Women back in July this summer, and they keep this one theater keeps doing it over and over again. So like a lot of the different women, you know, we all know. I was like, oh yeah, you did it back in July. Okay, I did it back in April. You know, so it's just like, it's not necessarily like a hardcore like defined like this is the name of the community and collective that we all work under. It's more of like this unspoken like, oh, we work in the same circles. And we're always seeing each other at auditions. We're always seeing each other at castings and in theaters and in rehearsal spaces that are the same. So I think that's the collective, if anything.
That's really cool. I started to work with doing collaborations, you know, with other musicians in the last year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought me to where I'm going to get to go to Paris like next year.
Oh, that's awesome.
With some electronic collective that's in Paris.
Oh, nice.
5 days with them, just because I worked with this German artist for my album cover, and he happened to know the collective, and then he
Oh,
talked
that.
to them, and then now I introduced them, so now I get to work with them because we kind of barter. Now we don't all like, you know, I got my artist, you know, the artist Trinabello, they did my cover because I go and I plug them and they plug me, and we just basically help each other out without getting paid, but we kind of just push their stuff, and then from there you get connections, and then you find other people to work with, and like maybe you don't get paid, but you do something for free, and then because you did it for free, somebody else does something else, and then they do this and do that.
Yeah.
It seems to be like, you know, the indie kind of nature of the indie artist is to kind of do it in trade and do it in barter. You know.
Yeah, that's how you. I mean, it's fortunate and unfortunate at the same time, I think, because you do want to be able to live off your art. Like that's one of my main goals right now, is to really support myself as an artist just off of the work that I do. I recently designed a book cover for a children's chapter book. And being able to do work like that is really great, is because I'm still doing my art, you know, I'm still being able to sustain myself. But I do appreciate the indie scene to open up opportunities to work with different people. So it's just like, I think it comes from needing to navigate, you know, you need to know how to navigate your opportunities. Because you know, as much as I appreciate student film, I don't do it anymore. Because I know where I need to be and where I want to be. And I know that me doing, you know, 10 or 15 student films per year is not necessarily going to get me where I want to go. And so it's, you know, there has to be, I think there, you know, just for anyone who is kind of in a space where they need to know how to navigate, this is how I do it. I just looked at where I need to be, where I want to be, and what's going to get me there. And I, again, like I said, I appreciate the indie scene because it does open up opportunities. And it's also just knowing who to work with, knowing if I do this thing for free, that it might pay off later on. Or if it doesn't, at least it's a good thing for me to have on my resume. It's a good thing for me to show, you know, like knowing what projects to do so that you promote yourself as the valuable artist that you are, I think is the most important part. So.
Yeah, I think that's what we've been doing in the last year. We've been, you know, just doing interviews because we found, at least in the music scene, there were some people who were charging for an interview, and then we found, you know, and I said I don't think that's cool. I think somebody should do it, and I said, you know what, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then I just started doing it, and then from there, I just been, you know, trying to give a voice to multiple artists. Last year, and we got to the point at the end of the year where we're branching out from, you know, not just doing interviews with musicians, but going into, like, you know, artists and actors and directors.
Yeah.
Kind of opening it up to be a wider, you know, path. That's what we were going to do this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because it opens up doors for everybody. I think if you collaborate and work with people who are super committed and dedicated to their craft and what they're doing, I think you're always going to have a benefit there. There's always going to be a benefit to that.
But we're all artists, you know. The musicians sometimes get kind of narrow and say it's just about the music. But like for every musician that does something, you know, you do a video, you work with actors. You know, you might do music for a film. You're going to be working with actors and directors. So you should be more open to working with not just other musicians, but like every type of artist. And
I think that's
a lot of my friends is, well, why are you talking to other people besides artists? Well, because we're all artists.
Yeah, we're all artists. All musicians are artists. You know, actors are artists. Directors are artists. We're all making something that's art. We're all making art. So I just want to support people who are about making good art. I guess good is kind of a not. I mean, you can't really. Yeah, I guess it's because everything is you know, it's subjective. Like art is, you can't really define art as good or bad.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say, I shouldn't say good, but like just making art that you are very dedicated to and that you really enjoy and are proud of. I think that's the
Well, I
main
think
thing.
art finds its time. If you go back and you look at like Warhol in the Velvet Underground with Lou Reed, right? At the time
Mm-hmm.
they did this stuff, people thought it was terrible. And by the time you get to the mid 70s, everybody said it's like totally influential. It totally
Mm-hmm.
drove college radio, created the, the REMs of the world, created all the indie, alternative rock came from people who loved the Velvets,
Yeah.
and if everybody said, if a critic of the Velvets and Warhol didn't know what they were doing, how many bands
Mm-hmm.
got created because of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. Because some band today might not be well known, and then later people will say they're super influential.
Yeah.
It just
No, it's true.
happened that way.
Yeah. I think it's all about there's so much that goes in. It's all like timing. There's so much that goes into to whether or not you're successful. It's just there's no way to tell. There's no way. Everyone wants to make it when they're like in their 20s.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. And it's not I had to get over that because I was, that's the visual that you're fed when you don't
Yeah.
have a mentor or someone that's been in the business for very long. When you're just really green and don't know anything and you want to do this, what you're seeing is like this 20 something on this magazine, and you're just like, is that how it happens? You have to be that age and that's how you're successful, and you have to get a magazine cover. Like, that idea is pushed in your face, so you automatically, through conditioning, think that that's the way that it needs to go, and not necessarily.
Yeah.
um
You see these
so
people given like a second chapter in their life. A lot of these blues and soul artists are getting picked up by Jack
mhm.
White and stuff, and they're being brought back.
Oh
To,
yeah, oh yeah. Well, which is great of Jack White because he acknowledges where his music comes from.
yeah.
Um, he really does.
And that's kind of cool to see that happen. You see these people being, they were kind of like not given a chance, and they're brought back because people have love for their craft. And so there's
Hmm.
some people today that they're seeking out, like the people that were on the Chitlin circuit, or the people who were kind of like not as well known as James Brown, or not as well known as like like Funkadelic, and they're trying to seek them out and bring them back, bring them to where they
Hmm.
should be. So there's some
Hmm.
respect for these people who were really great and didn't get the chance. And I think that's
Yeah,
cool. That happens.
yeah,
People acknowledge that. It's always cool.
yeah. No, it's a great thing when you can actually go back and give somebody a hand, who didn't necessarily get it when they were coming up. Um, so I commend people who do that. I think that's a great. It's just a great giving back. It's a great way to give back. We need that. We need that.
Yeah, because sometimes people play the game you were saying, like it's like a young person's game. It's only like the 18-year-olds and the 20-year-olds that are really considered like the new phenoms or whatever. And there's
Hmm.
always music is music, or art is art. And if somebody,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what their age is if they're actually saying something. If they
Right.
have
Yeah.
something to say, they can bring something to the table. They could be 50, they could be 20, they could be 70. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
That's that's the thing. I think I was talking to someone today about that. Um, Today I had a model casting for my not a model casting, a model fitting today for my fashion show that's coming up this weekend. It's on New Year's Eve. So this model was telling me that some big shot photographer who's in his 70s who used to photograph all these models in like the 80s and 90s told her that she should just quit because she's too old and she's not thin enough and blah blah blah. And I told her, don't listen to him because he's operating under the information that he was getting when he was, in his prime and doing photography when it was that generation. Things are much different now, I think. You don't have to be a certain age. You don't have to be fitting only into a certain type. because we have the advent of social media and, you know, things like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of that, you have more avenues to be uniquely you, and someone will actually want to patron that, in whether it is following you or purchasing whatever you're selling them. If you do products or songs or whatever, there's an audience for everybody now. So it's not just like you need to fit into these three types as an artist or as a model or as an actor, as a musician. You have so many people that are willing to be your audience now because it's just opened it up. So yeah, you don't need to be you don't need to be 18 or 20 just to get noticed anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, like with the music game, like you could be playing, you know, like electronic music in America. Maybe it doesn't kick as hard as if you go to the Netherlands or you go to Australia, or you go to, you know, South Korea, you go to Seoul, you go to Tokyo. You get a massive crowd that if you showed up, you know, in Anaheim or something, you probably wouldn't get the same crowd that you could get in Berlin. You know, you could get.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like if you're an electronic musician, just because you don't make it at the local Chinese restaurant doesn't mean that you couldn't take it on the road. And if you're willing to kind of think out the box, yeah, why don't you go and do a show like in Paris? Because people in the Eurozone love that, love electronic music. And if you go and you play there and show them what you got, you just don't think about limiting it to just the US.
Yeah.
You end up getting an audience that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, no, it's all about it's all about where you are and who you're playing for, and you know, how you choose to promote yourself as an artist. I think it plays a lot into who becomes your audience, you know. So
Because of the net, you have such a reach that everybody that's on your social media, they're not just in the US. I mean,
no, yeah. I mean, I love getting feedback from people who are not just American, you know, like and that, you know, I think is really valuable, because then you're able to create on a level that's not just for one audience too. You know, you can create for a very textured audience, you know, and expose people to so much more than just one branch of art, you know. So I think it's great to have an audience that's international. And that's like my goal.
Yeah, that's for all indie artists. That's like, you know, the big equalizer now. Everybody's got their home studios. Is that there's so many people that have, you know, all different tastes around the world. And you know, in America, it tends to be like the radio programming in America seems to be very like segregated.
Yeah, and that sucks, and that's why things like podcasts and like I think having like a platform outside of radio and TV, but having an online platform is really helpful, because you have more control over your distribution and who you're reaching. So yeah, TV and radio are very, very antiquated now, I think. You have so many different TV like quote platforms coming out, you know, since Hulu and Amazon and Netflix have all done so well. You have things like Shudder, and you've got things like, you know, other you know, TV platforms that are just streaming platforms rather. So it's just like you don't have to be confined to radio or TV.
Yeah, the BBC. I mean, the BBC will play so many different types of genres. Where like American stations are kind of stuck playing the same playlist they played since 1978. You know.
Yeah. It's because they're just so used to it, you know. And that's evident in the material, you know, that they're pushing. You know, it took them 22 years to kick Law and Order off the air, and it's still going on. So it's just they for some reason Americans don't like change, and we're trapped.
Like 5 versions of the same show, you know.
Well, oh yeah, I mean, it's this, you know, The J-Lo show on NBC is pretty much Law and Order Point 2. Or point 2.0.
Yeah.
They
I guess they like what's familiar. I guess it makes them feel good.
No, but you also have to understand who the demographic who still watches TV is. So a lot of people who are streaming things are a younger generation.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be they don't have a TV in their apartment. They've got a laptop or a phone or an iPad where they can stream things from Hulu, Netflix, or whatever.
They binge watch,
They binge watch.
Stranger Things or
Right.
something. They
Whereas,
don't watch like all of them in the family for the 100th time.
Right. Whereas, someone like my grandmother who's in her 80s is so used to watching television and watching something on the TV with these kinds of characters. So that's for them. And that's why I think TV hasn't really changed that much, because their demographic is older. And the older you are, in some instances, you don't like to change too much. Unfortunately. I mean, I hope I never get to be that kind of person, but I feel like I have a tendency to be a crotchety person. But that's just, you kids get off my lawn kind of thing. But I think it just comes down to your demographic and who's still doing what. And that's why TV has remained the way it is, because their audience has been the same. And now, yeah.
Well, I live in a part of New England that's like, New Hampshire, which is like really kind of set. Like, people think that East is real liberal, but you get to places like New Hampshire, people are like, they're so set in their ways.
There's conservative.
They won't even use Uber.
Yeah.
Because I'm like an Uber driver on the side to buy my gear.
Yeah.
I have to drive like an hour to another town because the town I'm in has so many older people that are scared of smartphones. So they won't use them, and then they won't use the Uber because they'd rather go get a regular cab because they don't trust
that's because it's what they know. It's easier for them because it's what they know. It's what they know.
It's kind of like that type of demographic that's still watching like Archie Bunker or something.
Yeah. So it's like it's just archaic, but it works for some people. It does work for some people. Not changing and not, it's easy. It's an easy way to go with life. So, we're going to get the same thing.
Where you are, like, because you're out there really pushing boundaries and you're not scared. You seem fearless about what you're doing, and that's really cool to see. A person out there really just doing it because you love the art, that you want.
Yeah, I think I really do love art, and I'm glad that I'm perceived as fearless, because I think I'm scared shitless most of the time. But I have this thing where I just feel the fear and do it anyway, because what else am I gonna do? Like I can't live my life afraid of things, and so it's nice to be able to embrace that and use it in my work. And I just tell people, like, if you feel passionate about something, how can you not do it? It would hurt me so much to not pursue any of the crafts that I have. It would really be a detriment to me as a person, and I would feel very regretful, and that regret would haunt me and be really painful for me. So that, I guess, my fearlessness comes from the fear of regret and the fear of, not knowing what could have been if I pursued this thing. I don't like having regrets. I hate it. I think that's, your life is too short. If you want to do something, fucking do it, So that's my kind of outlook on life. I was also born with something that makes me, like having to take life by the balls. Having a chronic illness is not, you have to just do things in the now because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think that's with everybody. So
I found a lot of artists that I've met in the last year sometimes have like chronic issues and stuff that kind of drive them to make,
yeah.
do more than what you would have thought they would have done. And it seems to be like a lot of artists sometimes have something that's inside them that does that, that causes them to kind of step out. It's like, why does that person become an artist versus becoming like the person's going to do the 9-to-5 job? It seems like they have this something inside them that drives them. And sometimes it comes from like physical or psychological or all kinds of things, but it's always something seems to drive.
Yeah, you have to have that drive, whether it be coming from a place where you have a physical ailment that you have to, that presents a challenge in your life that you have to overcome, or if it's a mental, issue that you have, or maybe it's an emotional thing. Maybe it comes from emotional trauma or something that happened to you when you were a kid that you need to prove to yourself that you're not going to be, you're not going to be stuck in a place of weakness or whatever it is. There has to always be something that drives you so that you pursue your passion. So yeah, for me, it's a culmination of different things. But that's, the whole chronic illness thing kind of rears its head a lot more often. But it comes from somewhere. The drive has to come from somewhere. The motivation has to come from somewhere. So
I just think that's why every time I've met like somebody creative this year, I found like after talking to them or they tell me they reveal it themselves that there's always something that's like causing that to happen to make you not like the regular person who just doesn't try to do that. It doesn't try to fulfill. Because some people are really fearful, I think, their whole life. I mean, I think there's a lot of fear.
I think there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people make hard decisions based on fear.
I think it's true. Some of the best decisions can come from, it just depends on how you look at it, because I've made decisions based out of fear that have actually worked in my advantage. Like I was deathly afraid of just living in California all of my life and not pursuing my dreams. So out of fear of that, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go take a trip to Europe by myself for 3 months. And then I'm going to move to New York and get to work, because I'm so afraid of this idea of not having a fulfilled life with my art, So that kind of fear can drive you. That kind of fear, the fear of being mediocre has always driven me. I don't like the idea of being any kind of perceived normal. I don't. It's just not fun. It's just not my desired way to live life is to be normal in any way. So.
Yeah, I've seen that with a lot of the musicians I've been talking to, musicians that want to make their own mark, write something unique, create like new type of music, not just be a cover band. You get the type of musician that wants to kind of push things.
Yeah.
That thing that's kind of comes from the same kind of place. They want to do something that's going to make a mark, whether or not they're successful. They don't necessarily try to make the top 10.
Yeah.
Or top 50. They're just trying to make art because they feel that they have something to say.
Right. Yeah.
I think when people that's where things happen.
Yeah, it's just putting yourself out there in a way that your hard work is enough, and I don't know if it's like tailoring your expectations or just accepting in the moment that like not having expectations at all, because you want to just be able to create and know that your creativeness is going to come back and have this like astounding effect on your life. Like I put this much work in it, I put this much creative energy into it, something has to come back to me. But I think if you put it out there and just know that you're completely satisfied with what you're putting out and that be it, then everything else that happens is a bonus, That's kind of how I look at it. That's, like everything else is a bonus.
Yeah,
I still have, Uh-huh.
I think when you put yourself out there, things happen. Like if you never take an idea and you never push it, then somebody might never hear it, and that person might never call you, and they might never ask you to do something else. Because if you're
Right,
too
yeah.
out there, the act of actually putting it out there causes other people to connect to you who are artistic as well, and then that causes like a cascading event of all these things. It's kind of chaos theory. You put something out there, and suddenly it caught because it exists. Some other person sees it, and then they do something else, and it keeps on cascading. And I think that's how the artistic kind of life works.
Yeah, I think you have to be fearless with how you ask people for things and promote yourself. I mean, I'm still learning that. I still had to learn, to be in a place where, it's okay to say, hey, I do this thing. You might like it and support it. Like, it took me a while to get to a place where I could say that.
Is there still kind of etiquette, within the industry that tells you shouldn't do that?
Not so. I don't think so. I pretty much operate under the umbrella of fuck everybody. I'm too old now. For me, I feel too old to really give a fuck about what anyone else thinks, and I've always maintained that. That's always been my MO, is to not care. But it's more so now. I was more conscious back then of what people thought, and I thought that I needed to navigate other people's thoughts in order for me to succeed. But that's false. I think you need to navigate them in terms of know that what people think about you is not a reality that you need to necessarily take on as your own. It's just out there in the world, in the cosmos, for you to be aware of, but you don't need to let that define you and validate you. So my whole attitude about who I am as a creator and an artist or whatever, now has just been, I'm going to introduce myself as I'm an actor, designer, model. When, whatever I'm feeling like that day, if I feel more like a designer one day, I'm going to just say designer, and vice versa. But it was harder for me, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, to introduce myself as an actor. Because I was thinking about, oh God, if I introduce myself as an actor, this person's probably just going to think that I want to be famous and be like fucking Hannah Montana or Angelina Jolie. Like, I don't, my aspirations in acting are not confined to celebrity. Like, I don't want that. I want to be able to work with great people, and I want to be able to feed myself like that. Those have always been where, what acting was to me. But I was like acutely aware of what acting meant to people that weren't in my field. And I let that hold me back from introducing myself as an actor, because I'm like, oh, they're just going to think that I want this. And it's like, no, fuck that. You don't, first of all, who cares what they fucking think? They're not in your field. And if they are, and they think that, who gives a fuck? Like, you define your existence and what your life path is. Don't let anybody else do that. So I got to a place where, and it gets exhausting trying to think about what other people are thinking. So I think you just have to either cut it out and stop giving a fuck, or your exhaustion's going to stop you from giving a fuck, because it just gets too tiring. Thinking about the preconceived notions people have about what it is you do and what your pursuit in life is. It just, you can't think about it. So,
well,
that's how.
It's been really enlightening talking to you, because there's a lot of things that you're saying that I've heard, a lot of musicians have the same, issues and stuff. So it's that's why I think it's cool. It's like everybody, like I said, is an artist.
Right. We all have this. We all struggle in the same vein in some areas. Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you were our first actor to be on the show. And
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
What we do here is like this doesn't go out live. Once we publish it, then it becomes live. It lives
Okay.
out on a server, and we give
Awesome.
you like the hyperlink, and you can put it everywhere you want.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely, promote
We
and
can give
get
you an
more.
embed too. We can give you like an embed link that you can put into like HTML. If you've got like a blog or something, you can embed it.
Oh, nice. That would be great. I'd love that.
So we can
That
give you that too.
I
And
can hope I can like put like a little snippet on the Insta and link you guys or tag you guys, however that works. I'm trying to be all about the Instagram and social media game right now, which is it's annoying, but it's necessary. But
it'll work on like all the social media. Instagram has like you can put it into the profile, and if you've got enough capability to let you do like your story, let you do embeds and stuff. If you have enough hits, if you're over like 10,000.
I know, which is fucking bullshit, but whatever. Instagram.
One they would make hyperlinks actually work, like in the posting.
Yeah, I know. I saw that too. Like one of my friends, he's got like so many followers where if you follow his stories, you can actually click on the links to stuff because he's got over 10,000 followers, which is like, okay, whatever.
Well, they created like a tier, which is fine.
Yeah, it's so, oh God, that's just more capitalism and hierarchy.
Yeah, they don't, other places like Facebook even store links everywhere,
Instagram is just, it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, it's a cool platform, for the video, it's kind of useful. I tend to use the video platform. I like to use it for the video capability. As a musician, you throw like a little video out there, a snippet of a song, and people can immediately see it. It's a good way to do it. But the hyperlink situation is a whole other thing.
Yeah, it's just so much shit that they put you through. It's tiring.
But I will send you the links once we have to publish it and like make sure it sounds good, and then we'll send you a note that when it's out there, and then from the site itself, people can listen to it, and then you can put it anywhere you want.
Awesome.
And, we just do it for free because that's what we think we should do, and that's the way we roll it. And we hope to. What we try to do is like maybe 6 months from now, we come back and talk to people again, and see where you are. So if you want to do that, we can.
I'll totally do that. Yeah, for sure. This is fun.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and
thank you so much, Keith. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.